Hello, and thank you for joining us today for today's webinar and Q&A. I'm Martha Hodgson, and I'm delighted to be welcoming you to today's session entitled Shaping the Future of Sports Innovation. Firstly, let me introduce you to today's presenters. I'm Martha Hodgson. I'm a designer by background, specialising in user-centred sports design, and focus mainly on uncovering, translating, and activating insights for innovation to help identify new product, market, service, or business opportunities. Andy Wynn, who's also a designer by background, has a wealth of experience within the sports and consumer technology sector and has helped lead many design innovation projects, from exploring how the latest developments of technology can be capitalised upon has been paramount. And last, but by no means least, Ros Lancaster. Ros has a background in exercise physiology and draws on her healthcare and consumer experience to help identify new market opportunities that are not only commercially attractive, but are also technically feasible and meaningful to the end users. Please feel free to submit any questions in the webinar Q&A box as we run through today's presentations, and we'll aim to answer as many as we can for you before the end of today's session. For those of you who are joining us for the first time today, Ros, Andy and myself are from Cambridge Design Partnership, who are an end-to-end innovation partner. We have offices in both Cambridge, UK and Raleigh, North Carolina, and are made up of a multidisciplinary team which stretches from research and designers to mechanical engineers and data analytics. This range of expertise allows us to help clients throughout the end-to-end innovation process, from strategy and insights through to design, development and manufacturing. Our business is broadly split equally across the consumer sectors, encompassing everything from food and beverage to health, beauty and sport, and the healthcare sectors, ranging from drug delivery to surgical systems. We have a number of cross-cutting capabilities which bring a unique blend of experience, knowledge and expertise to each and every innovation project we support, from front-end innovation, quality and manufacturing, to digital, regulatory and sustainability. Specifically, for today's webinar, we are delighted to be sharing with you our experience from working across the sports sector. This draws on our work with both leading sports brands and startup companies, to organisations at the forefront of adjacent markets, exploring how they can grow their brand through expanding into the sports playing field, so to speak. Our webinar today will draw on the three lenses of our successful innovation model: consumer, technology, and commercial, as we believe successful innovation is achieved from finding the sweet spot between all three. We are delighted to be sharing with you, firstly, the lessons we have learned around technology-enabled sports innovation and where we see opportunities opening up in the future. Secondly, the current consumer trends that we believe will continue to shape the future of the sports sector. And finally, our recommended key steps to help identify commercially attractive sports innovation opportunities. So, to kickstart us, I'm going to hand over to Andy, who is going to share with you the lessons we have learnt from working across the sports sector over the last 5 years. Mainly how technology has evolved and shaped both equipment design, but also experiences and expectations. Andy, over to you.
Okay, thanks, Martha. Over the past 5 years, I've worked on many other consumer and sports-focused projects at CDP. I'd like to share some new technologies and innovations that we've delivered on our journey, from niche, small production runs of equipment through to well-known consumer brands wanting innovation for the mass market. So I'll take you through some of our highlights and what could potentially be around the corner. Okay, so as our experience and knowledge grows, we've seen and tackled many of the new ways to support the needs of the athlete and recreational sportsman. Below are 3 hot topics I'd like to highlight and what we'd class as key topical areas. Athletic performance. Projects where we've had to gain an understanding of the athlete and develop new apparatus to gain a competitive advantage. Data analytics. This is quite a broad area and can mean a lot of things to different people. Where we've been effective is through tailoring scenarios and developing bespoke systems. I can take you through some case studies shortly and we'll delve into this space in a little more detail. But before I do, finally, our third, advanced manufacturing. This is a pretty active area. Many brands are trying hard to adapt their production methods in order to provide new and exciting experiences for their consumer. But let's kick off with the essential and what everyone associates technology and sports with. Running and cardio fitness tracking are where we're seeing the most advancements currently. These are movements which are linear in motion, gathering information such as distance, time, and heart rate. This current method of tracking is widely known, but even if it appears simple, it still requires a good understanding of what factors are important to users. What do users and avid sports fitness fanatics really want to know? A simple message isn't always that easy to capture and portray. So this leads us well into our first case study. This is a digital case study for a well-known swimming brand, Speedo. It was a couple of years ago now, so for our team it was quite pioneering. Our objective was to develop a swimming device that could detect which stroke you were performing live and seamlessly. That sounds simple, but from a single wearable, it's pretty tricky. What's important is collecting the right source data. We analysed swimmers from the elite level through to the novice to fully understand the characteristics that form a swimming stroke. We covered all the strokes: breaststroke, butterfly, freestyle, and backstroke. The Speedo team helped capture over 500 samples, and when combined, they swam over the length of Britain. So now we have all the data. Our software team needed to find a unique signature within each stroke. Now we needed to think differently. A device has limited battery power and data crunch time, so we needed to isolate those signatures quickly and cut out the noise. This enables us to develop a unique algorithm to solve the problem and where the innovation really lies. Here we have another tracking study for the shoe and leather brand Echo. Another live feedback system, but this time customer facing and within the store. We developed an electronic system to understand the walk characteristic. Using state-of-the-art, latest sensor technology, we created a compact and small system which could be embedded into the inner sole of the shoe. A customer would then walk on the treadmill in the fitting area so staff could study their unique walking profile. So this profile will provide information to help build a personalised inner sole. Pronate or supinate, more support and cushioning is added to those areas suffering from heavy impact and weight distribution. A honeycomb support structure is then created on a 3D printer whilst the customer is in waiting. This really is a first step in providing their customers with a fully customised in-store experience. Our third topical area, advanced manufacturing. Now this is quite a hot topic, especially with how people are concerned about today's environment. There are more pressures for brands to develop apparel and footwear with environmental issues at the forefront. Many brands are exploring this space, but it does come with its challenges. Slow manual processes lead to low production rates, making them unfeasible to pursue at this stage. But this hasn't stopped brands exploring this space. We are engaged in discussions with reputable brands like Adidas and MES Holdings, a large fabric supplier in the sports industry. Due to low development speeds and customer waiting time being of the essence, we have developed an innovative material inspection equipment that enables workaround solutions, minimizing material losses and slowing the production even more so. We have great expertise at CDP with our manufacturing team developing novel production lines and quality systems to overcome these obstacles. So where do we see the future heading for data analytics? There is another level of movement tracking beyond what we understand as cardio tracking, a movement which is more dynamic. What I mean by this is that each sport has its own unique characteristics and signature. People are wanting to monitor their progress in an activity, especially activities that require a gymnastic approach for execution. But knowing how to transition and balance, rotate, and complete a series of movements takes years of practice. Knowing when a movement has begun and when it is complete is very hard to capture from a data perspective. Then you have to feed that information back to a user. It requires more sensors, more data, and clever algorithms. To add more complexity to dynamic movement, you can add a ball to the mix. Not only do you need to track dynamic movement, we also need to gather information on ball contact and ball release. This subject matter grows exponentially. Then we even start thinking about a collective, team games. Each individual playing their part, yet a ball or another object provides the outcome. The key will be to find strengths and weaknesses within the team. Which players perform better with, say, a left foot or right foot ball control? How best to track movement in relation to other teammates' positions? These are all scenarios that allow coaches and players to function cooperatively. Data analytics with more than one sportsman to track will be the ultimate goal. So what's next in terms of technology-led sport innovation? We are seeing a number of technology startups making a play to enter into the sports market. 3 technology-led hot topics which I feel will gather momentum, especially given the behaviour changes we're seeing as a result of today's pandemic, are esports, enhanced experience venue technology, and virtual reality training. Companies like Brazil in the UK and Stir VR in the US are using virtual reality to give athletes a 360-degree immersive simulation of actual sport context that players can interact with. Technology in this format is helping to not only advance athletes' training and performance, but also enabling players to maintain their match day agility whilst recovering from injury and without having to play the physical sport itself. Not only is virtual reality advancing sports professionals, but it also as a tool to enhance the in-store and online shopping experience. Coupled with an app, VR can be used to engage with shoppers as they choose to shop and interact with products virtually, trying them on and out before they buy. So I hope this has provided you with some of our previous experience and past expertise in this market sector. And now I'll hand you back to Martha.
Thanks, Andy. This next section will focus on the current consumer trends that we believe are and will shape the future of the sports sector. Now, many organisations associate innovation with the latest technology, and whilst technology is a key enabler, identifying a meaningful problem to solve is, and always has been, the cornerstone for true innovation. So, whilst the pace and speed that technology is evolving and shaping the consumer product and service landscape is greater than ever before, it remains as important as ever, if not more so, to be clear on the problem or need before focusing on the solution. As Albert Einstein is famously quoted for promoting, if we have an hour to solve a problem, we should spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about the solutions. Now, consumer-centric design is very much at the heart of Cambridge Design Partnership's approach to successful innovation, and I myself am a true advocate in ensuring that what we design and develop helps improve people's lives. At CDP, we take a solution-agnostic approach to exploring, understanding, and uncovering true consumer needs, be them functional, social, or emotional in nature, and truly understanding that need in context. But it's also key to understand what is driving and shaping the problem space and the consumer needs. At CDP, we track 8 cross-category consumer-centric megatrends, which, by their very nature, are impacting incremental and transformational innovation. Now, megatrends have different meanings and impacts for different industries, companies, and individuals. So it is key to understand what the driving forces are behind them to be able to foresee their potential impact. All consumer trends are driven by driving forces such as political, legal, social, and technical changes, and these shape consumer perceptions, expectations, and their behaviour against which the success of products and service solutions will be measured. As we see economical, technical, and social as the 3 main driving forces across the sports sector, I'd like to focus on the 3 main megatrends which we therefore see shaping the sports sector. And they are personalisation, where customised features cater to the needs of consumers at a much deeper level. Secondly, digital connectivity, where interactions and transactions, so both human and machine, are governed by the capabilities of the internet, accessible data, smartphones, and also machine-to-machine technology. And thirdly, sustainability, where the focus is on conserving and using the Earth's ever-vanishing limited resource in the most efficient way. And in times of disruption, new trends may emerge as either new needs develop or existing needs shift in priority. However, given the driving forces at play, some of them may turn out just to be short-term fads rather than actually emerging or disruptive trends. Looking at personalisation as a megatrend, firstly, we have seen this influence the way products and services have been created in our world today. We have seen numerous mass-customised promotional campaigns which focus on providing consumers with a personalised product, although this is largely just maybe at a packaging or a claims level. Today's personalised solutions tend to target and be designed for specific consumer segments and largely focus on providing users with a functional benefit. Often, technology is a key enabler to making consumers feel like a product or a service has been designed specifically for them. A great example of some forward thinking we supported recently was by Puma, who created a new personalised jacket concept, which was enabled by a new technology to enable runners to improve their visibility when running at dusk or dawn or even at night. Alongside this, the Puma Track running app was developed, which allows a runner to set and connect the jacket to their personal running pace or goal. So the jacket would glow red if the pace was too slow, or green if the target was being achieved. There are a number of ways that personalisation will shape the sports sector going forward. Without a doubt, consumers' expectations around the level of personalisation they receive will keep growing. From having products and services that are actually designed at an individual level, potentially even at a genome or a DNA level, to consumers seeking a greater emotional connection with the brands they choose to engage with, so wanting brands, products and services to really align with their personal benefits and values. And if consumers can't find these solutions, well, we're going to continue to see an increase in entrepreneurial and startups bringing new products and new offerings to the market in a much more agile and quicker way. One key influential trend in the realm of personalisation that we are seeing shifting the sports sector is what we refer to as blurring borders. Largely, we know consumers don't see the world through the traditional market categories as many businesses do. They are purely looking for their needs to be met by the best solution. And a number of adjacent sectors, such as healthcare and fashion, have core assets or technologies which can bring additional value or even heightened consumer experiences to the consumer's sports needs. And we are already seeing a number of these organisations who are on the peripheral repositioning themselves and blurring the borders of traditional sports sector. An example of one such company is Oracle. Oracle are an emerging company that blends sports and data science with data-driven AI technologies that can help optimize athletes' performance. With a multidisciplinary team made up of sports scientists, data science, medicine physicians, genomics, and nutritional experts, they demonstrate a hybrid position by having a foot in both the sport and the healthcare sectors. Their hero product, Biomarker Analytics, can profile the biomarkers in an athlete's blood and process the emerging data through its machine learning software. This results in personalised insights into optimal training conditions, nutrition, recovery strategies, and training regimes. Another growing trend, which has resulted from blurring borders between fashion and activewear, is athleisure. Now, athleisure, which in a nutshell is fashionable workout clothing for both in and out of the gym, has rapidly grown momentum and has clearly helped the sportswear industry in recent years. Now, consumers, especially Gen Z, so those currently aged from 5 to 25 years, are driving the trend due to a social and emotional desire to appear fit and healthy and to look the part. A brand who has been very much at the heart of this trend is UK-based Sweaty Betty. They are not only blurring the borders between fashion and activewear, but are also helping break down gender stereotypes in sports by aiming to empower women through fitness and beyond, drawing on a love of fashion and a want to look amazing. Another brand worth mentioning that has capitalised not only off the athleisure trend, but also the e-commerce trend is Gymshark. When they started out, they offered sports clothing that was better fitting than anything else on the market. But mind you, at this stage, every product they created was one-off and custom made. A real turning point for this brand was how they got their products noticed. Understanding their market and their consumers, they sent YouTube fitness celebrities their Gymshark products for free. At the time, no one else had done influencer marketing in e-commerce, and it was a pioneering way to showcase themselves in a meaningful way to their target audience. Our next megatrend, which we are seeing shaping the sports sector, is digital connectivity. In our world today, digital connectivity is increasing peer-to-peer connection, which in turn has grown an increase in smart product acceptance. Especially with our first digital native generation, known as Gen Z, growing the expectations around not just products and services, but also in the retail and the business environments as they are now starting to enter the workforce. Technology is rapidly advancing and becoming more accessible today, both in terms of costs and weight, and is opening up opportunities for using tracking and sensors to relay real-time data. In the outdoor and the sports sectors, we have supported the development of two systems that do just that. Firstly, the GMAX race system, which tracks horses in a race and provides real-time data for use on TV and mobile apps. The lightweight GPS tracker wirelessly transmits live tracking data, which includes the position, speed, and sectional times of each horse to a low-cost portable receiver. We're actually currently seeing this system expanding rapidly in the US market. And secondly, a connected physiology monitoring system, designed initially to measure and monitor the vital signs of trauma patients at the point of injury. Now, centered around a small device that clips onto the person's nose, this connected device monitors breathing rate and heart rate. This data is then added to a trends graph showing how these measurements have changed over time. Now, given the equipment needed to be reliable, robust, easy to use, lightweight and compact, these benefits could naturally allow the system to be easily transferred into the sports context as well. Going forward, digital connectivity is increasing social word of mouth and the growth of bloggers and vloggers, which are shaping new influential channels in the sports sector. We are also going to start to see our digital world move from a monodimensional to a multi-sensory experience. So consumers' engagement with digital will be enhanced by stimulating all 5 human senses. Again, technology is a key enabler to digital connectivity trends, but the real value will come from the data science and ability to translate the data into meaningful and actionable experiences. 2 trends driven by digital connectivity that we feel are shaping the future of the sports sector are quantified self and the evolution of esports. So firstly, quantified self. As showcased by Andy earlier, and across a number of the examples shared so far, sensors and tracking technology is allowing us to design and train machine learning systems to detect metrics in real time. But the data captured is only as valuable as the actions you can derive from it, and there is much competitive advantage to be gained from how data is analysed, interpreted, and activated by both the end user and the corporate organisation. Now, this trend is opening up a number of opportunities across the sports sector, as we see sensors and trackers taking on new forms to enrich the depth and breadth of data being captured. Some of which are taking on more intimate embodiments, such as smart plasters, optical sensors, and tracking implants. A great future-thinking example is Gatorade's GX Sweat Patch. The patch and companion app are designed to bring sweat testing, personalised sport fueling, and recovery recommendations to all athletes without the need of a traditional lab. This digital ecosystem combines wearable technology that captures an athlete's sweat rate and electrolyte concentration directly from the skin with a smartphone app that processes the data using machine learning. And once the sweat patch data is collected via the app, an athlete's sweat profile can be created. And this, combined with scenario-specific details such as activity type, weather, intensity, and duration, can be used to generate personalised sports fueling recommendations before, during, and after exercise. The second digital connectivity trend we see opening up a number of future opportunities for the sports industry is the evolution of esports. Esports may still be a mystery to many, and there still remains some discrepancy around whether esports is actually a sport or not, but there is no denying that it is growing rapidly throughout the world, with competitions taking place annually with both professional gamers and amateur gamers taking part. As with regular sports, esports can see a player or a team competing against another player or team and requires fast reaction time and skill levels. So in-game analytics is therefore a growing opportunity to not just drive engagement amongst fans, but also to help players and teams train, strategize, and ultimately increase their chances of winning. Sponsorships have accounted for almost half the esports revenue stream recently, and has clearly impacted its growth and popularity. New brand and sponsorship opportunities are going to continue to open up and prove invaluable given the sports demographic sweet spot is males aged between 21 to 35, who are increasingly hard to reach via traditional advertising routes. The key to success here, however, is authenticity. Fans will likely reward brands that help esports' growth by backing teams and tournaments. However, industry experts have also cautioned that gamers will likely punish brands who are seen as just exploitive and only using it for short-term gain. Sponsorship opportunities have already caught the eye of existing brands like Snickers and Coca-Cola, who are both actively sponsoring esport tournaments this year. Our final megatrend that we feel is shaping the sports sector is sustainability. As a megatrend, we have seen it drive an increased reuse and recycling culture and awareness, driving organisations to seek carbon neutral status and be seen as clean slate. And whilst we know reuse is not new to the sports sector, believe it or not, Nike's Reuse a Shoe is now over 20 years old. There is a growing tension around consumers' sustainability perceptions and expectations. Single-use products and materials have become a key consideration for many, with consumers demanding less disposable and more reusable materials. We are also seeing growing levels of consumers being mindful of where things have come from, resulting in an increasing demand for traceability around where ingredients and materials have come from in particular, and the impact they will have after use on us both physically and environmentally. Sustainability is a growing cross-sector hot topic which we speak to a lot of organisations about and, as a result, have developed cross-functional expertise within this space. A key focus today has been supporting both B2B and B2C organisations, setting up and executing upon their sustainability development goals. One key approach to this is creating life cycle analysis, so cradle to grave, to understand what sustainability means in their context and for their business, to enable us to explore potential improvement opportunities which can help them provide more sustainable offerings. These solutions have included defining and developing sustainability and new product strategy, such as moving from a full consumable to durable consumable product offerings, evolving from purely product-based business models to more service-based business models, and the creation of circular design guidance. So going forward, sustainability will continue to shape the sports sector, both from an end-user, social and ecological responsibility perspective, as well as a production and manufacturing level. We expect to see an increase in waste model innovation, where excess product or energy waste is turned into additional value, or organisations thinking differently about how and what single-use products they create. For example, personalisation in footwear will enable manufacturers to just create exactly what consumers want, rather than a crippling portfolio of size options. We are also expecting to see a rise of local business models, especially as a result of the current pandemic, as more and more consumers are trusting closer to home brands and manufacturers who reflect their social, cultural, and traditional norms. When it comes to materials, the sports sector is often at the forefront of the latest developments. Materials will continue to be a huge decision driver for consumers, not just in terms of performance enhancement, but in terms of brand and corporate responsibility, as consumers will become increasingly conscious in how economically products can be made and disposed of or be reused. Therefore, perhaps unsurprisingly, the main trend being driven by sustainability that we feel will continue to shape the future of the sports industry is plastic-free world. There are two great initiatives we have seen recently, both of which have seen global sports brands creating strategic partnerships to help them be at the forefront in responding to this growing trend. Firstly, Lucozade Ribena Suntory, who teamed up with material engineering startup Skipping Rocks Lab to trial their revolutionary UHO product at a number of running events, including the London Marathon last year. The biodegradable capsules were filled with the energy drink Lucozade Sport Orange and could either be consumed whole or bitten into to release the liquid. As the UHO product is made from a seaweed-based substance, if the wrapper is discarded, it naturally decomposes in 4 to 6 weeks, which is roughly the same time as a piece of fruit. Now, in 2018, an estimated 760,000 plastic bottles were thrown into London streets by runners and spectators, and the target last year was to bring this number down by 215,000 to make the event the most sustainable marathon ever. And with over 30,000 edible drink capsules handed out to runners, this made the marathon last year the largest ever trial of the UHO capsules. And the second great initiative I wanted to share with you was Adidas Parley. Adidas Parley is the official collaboration product line between Adidas and Parley for the Oceans, an environmental organisation that addresses environmental threats towards the oceans through ocean plastic pollution. Adidas Parley shoes are produced with recycled plastic, which helps to mitigate the amount of plastic that ends up in the ocean. The strategic partnership intercepts plastic before it enters the ocean and turns it into high-performing sportswear. To date, Adidas have recreated 3 editions of their Ultra Boost shoe and a new version of their Adidas Original shoe through this collaboration. So hopefully this has started your creative juices flowing around how consumer-centric market opportunities have opened up within the sports sector, and how global sports brands are already starting to shape the future through their innovation initiatives. Now, while Andy and I have shared some technology-led and consumer-driven opportunity areas which are shaping the future of sports innovation, the question you may be thinking to yourself is, which opportunities do I back? And now, to help you answer that question, Roz is going to share with you the key steps that we recommend you adopt in order to understand whether capitalising on a technology or providing a solution to a growing consumer need is going to be commercially attractive to your business. Roz, over to you.
Thanks very much, Martha. So we've heard about what's going on in the sports world, and clearly there's a huge amount of commercial opportunities for current players in the sports sector. From Andy's talk, we know that a lot of sports companies are at the forefront of material and wearable technology. But also, as Martha discussed, it's not only companies that are already in the sports sector who are shaping this arena. We're starting to see those boundaries of categorisation blurring, and a lot of key players on the periphery of the sports sector that have got the core capabilities from a technical perspective are able to come in from the outside and offer something that adds value to the consumer and that is disruptive to the sports industry. So as sports is such an attractive area, it's also an area that's presenting more challenges to get into. And this is really something that's been highlighted to us by consumers in projects that we've run in the area. So because sport is so accessible and desirable, that means that those in this environment can get completely bombarded with products. So there are a lot of products that essentially do the same thing with minor differences, and also a lot of products out there which make some really big claims. And for a consumer, this can be quite bewildering just because of the sheer volume of products on the market. And it can mean that they become very suspicious of new products and brands that they haven't come across before. And one of the reasons for this is the quality of the products can vary greatly. And products that have several claims behind them, they may be suspicious of and really look for those claims to be backed up by scientific evidence. So bearing some of these challenges in mind, what I'm going to do is share the initial 3-step process that we go through with sports brands that are already on the market, and then companies from adjacent market areas that might be looking to get into the sports arena. So these might be companies that have some expertise that lends itself to the area, and they want to explore if there is potential to develop a new offering or a solution that is already developed for one category area that can be lifted and deployed into the sports arena. I'll give you a quick overview of these initial 3 steps first before diving into each one in a bit more detail in a moment. So firstly, we conduct stakeholder interviews to understand what commercial advantage the company is trying to gain and what success looks like to them. Next, we'll speak to users to understand their needs, and this can help to see where there are gaps and where the market is already saturated. And then thirdly, or rather running parallel with the previous 2 steps, we'll explore the market landscape, and that includes competitor analysis and uses a variety of techniques and tools. With this information, we then come to a go or no-go recommendation for our client, and this is really whether the opportunity is commercially worthwhile for their investment. So I'd like to share some more detail around how and why we go through these 3 steps and some of the key insights we've learned from sizing opportunities across the sports sector. So firstly, when we work with an organisation, the first step is often to conduct stakeholder interviews. So this means talking to individuals from different capabilities in a company and understanding from a multidisciplinary perspective what is the problem they are trying to solve and what is the commercial advantage they are trying to gain. And then what is the driving force behind releasing a new product or solution? Or for adjacent companies who are looking to get into sports, why are they trying to enter the sports market? What's in it for them and what are their business aims and objectives? And this multidisciplinary approach is really useful to see how well aligned different functions of a company are in their vision for success. It can sometimes be the case that departments work in silos and don't interact with each other very often. And what one department thinks is success and thinks is achievable in a project can sometimes be very different from another department. So for any successful product development, it's really beneficial to have internal alignment before going any further to ensure that everyone is working together towards the same goals and that they have the same vision for the project and they are aware of each other's challenges so that they can work together to solve them more efficiently. So the drivers behind a new product development can vary significantly, and these are really important to understand as they have a huge influence on the rest of the programme. So example drivers and motives for a sports brand can be that they feel there is a user need that isn't currently satisfied and they would like to explore that further. It could be a financial driver. They might want to protect or grow their market share. So if a company knows that their main competitors are releasing an update of their product, they may want to update theirs in order to not fall behind and lose market share. A big sports brand may also launch something that they know won't necessarily make a big profit, but that may strengthen their brand and their position in the market. So in huge organisation, there's often a star sector where they have products and services that are hugely successful, where they already have a big market share. And this star sector will allow a company to fund other areas of development that will support the brand image, support innovation within the company, and it will allow a company to give a full complement of products that can answer all of the customers' needs and mean that they block those customers from straying to other competitors in the market. So then thinking about a company that is adjacent to the sports market, their drivers are likely to be a little different. So they may have a product in a sector such as healthcare that is developed but has to go through a huge amount of regulatory procedures before it can be launched. And they may believe that in the interim, this product can satisfy a need within another arena such as sports, and see the opportunity to launch a similar version of this product to make an interim profit. And for them, they may want to make a certain amount per annum, and that would be one of their main success criteria. So next steps, once we've understood what the company wants to achieve and their aligned vision of success, we'll then go out and speak to consumers and key opinion leaders in the sports industry. And depending on the focus of the project, these people could be anything from players and athletes themselves to their support teams to consumers. So essentially people who have a key insight and understanding of the area. And speaking to these people really helps you to understand if there is a need for a product or service, or if there is currently a gap in the market, which we can then explore the accessibility of. So we have a portfolio of different tools and techniques and methodologies that we use when conducting user research, and your approach will depend upon what you are trying to achieve. But typically, as Martha mentioned earlier, we like to use an insights for innovations approach rather than a market research approach. This means we can take a kind of a true solution and brand agnostic view, which helps us to understand the needs of the individuals, what the jobs are that they are trying to do, and how well met those needs currently are. So the great thing about this approach is that it gives valuable information regardless of whether a company is developing something entirely new or already has a solution that is available to be further developed. Keeping the needs of your consumer in mind at all times means that your development will be focused towards this and more likely to deliver something that the consumer or customer truly wants and needs, and that stands the test of time rather than being a short-term fad. Regardless of whether companies are already in the market or on the periphery, there's a big advantage to having someone external to their company completing this research. So for companies that are not already in the sports market, they don't have the connections and contacts in this space. So it's really important that they work with people who understand the area and already have contacts so that the appropriate individuals can be identified and reach quickly, and the research doesn't have any unnecessary delays. Then for companies who are already in the sports market and that already have some strong opinions on the market, having someone who isn't associated with their brand conducting the user research can be really advantageous, as that's going to allow that true solution and brand agnostic approach to be taken and help to avoid any bias through what they're learning. So something that happens as part of user interviews, but that we also undertake prior to and alongside the interviews as secondary research, is understanding the market space. A big part of this is ecosystem and competitive landscaping and analysis. And this piece of work helps us to understand innovations that have been brought to the market by competitors, how they did it and how successful it was. So we'll run our own analysis of the marketplace, and also when speaking to individuals in the sports market, we find out a huge amount of information about what they're currently using, why that is, how strong that solution is, and how well it meets their needs. So we really need to know where the gaps are and what type of costs are involved, and at what point do costs become prohibitive and why. So for companies that already have a solution, this information is really critical. So they may have a product that will answer a customer need, but it might be estimated at twice at what the user is willing to pay. And for that client, it's essential to know that information, because if they can't reduce the cost of a product and the product doesn't offer anything above an existing offering from other competitors with the same capability, then this will be a big risk to success that they need to be aware of. Depending on the nature of the product innovation challenge, we can then also do IP and technology landscaping to understand what's out there. It's also important to look at market data to understand the size of the market, see where the growth rates are, which brands are doing well and which are struggling. And all of this information helps to feed in where there are gaps and if there really is this strong commercial opportunity. At this point in our process, we come to a go, no-go situation. So once we've got this far, we've completed stakeholder interviews to align key stakeholders on their vision for the project and what success looks like for them. We've conducted interviews with users to understand their needs and confirm where there are gaps. And we have a clear understanding of the market space, what the growth opportunities are, and the competitive landscape. And this is very much a collaborative process that we work through with key stakeholders. So they're taken along this journey with us. But at this point, we'll look at all the information together and provide this along with our recommendation. And that will enable these stakeholders to make a strategic commercial decision as to whether or not to continue with the opportunity. And there are kind of three scenarios that play out at this point. It might be that following this work, there really isn't a clear opportunity or gap. The user need might already be well satisfied, or the market is already saturated, or the market's potential growth paired with the amount of competitors that are already out there means that this isn't advisable for the company to invest any further in this opportunity. Second, it might be that following the work, the highlighted opportunity is not deemed as appropriate, but from the research, there may actually be other opportunities that do fit with the company's vision for success and that would warrant further exploration. Or finally, in kind of the ideal world, the research will suggest that the opportunity is there is a user need, there is an accessible gap in the market, and this opportunity appears to align well with what the company's vision for success is. So at this point, we'll then move on to another set of steps before creating a go-to-market strategy. So I do hope that this has given a good high-level overview of the process that can be followed to assess whether an opportunity is going to be commercially attractive to either a sports company or a company looking to get into the sports market. And with that, I'll hand back to you, Martha.
Thank you, Ros. So, in summary, and before we spend our remaining time answering some of the questions you have submitted, today's webinar has drawn on the three lenses of our successful innovation framework to share with you how the future of sports innovation is taking shape. So firstly, Andy shared a number of examples and insights around the three technology-led hot topics of athletic performance, data analytics, and advanced manufacturing. I then provided a consumer-centric focus and shared how the three key megatrends of personalization, digital connectivity, and sustainability are and will continue to shape the sports sector. And finally, Ros has shared the all-important commercial lens and a process to help identify commercially attractive sport innovation opportunities. If you would like to continue the conversation about the future of sports innovation, please feel free to contact us via the email addresses shown on the screen. Thank you ever so much again for joining us for today's webinar. Andy and Ros, if we can now please turn on our cameras, we'd like to start the Q&A session.
Fantastic. Thank you. So Ros, I've seen a question come in, so diving straight over to you. You shared with us those first three initial steps on identifying a market opportunity, but there's a question here that says, what's next? So given that scenario that you actually get a green light, what are the immediate next steps that you would then recommend somebody take on that journey to a go-to-market strategy?
So next steps, thank you for the question. So I think that regardless of whether we're working with a sports brand or an adjacent company looking to enter into the market, the next steps are really around creating value propositions surrounding those various opportunities. And when I talk about value propositions, I mean, what are the various benefits that a solution in this opportunity space could deliver? So we look to test these propositions with a combination of one-to-one and group sessions with appropriate stakeholder and user groups, really with the aim of kind of fine-tuning or refining and then potentially prioritizing these propositions. And where possible, we keep this brand agnostic to start off with a view to really understanding the strength of the proposition initially and getting some feedback on that. And then we overlay a brand to really understand the stakeholder and user groups' response, which is really going to help understand if the brand have the right to play in the area. And when we do introduce the brand, I think picking up on the point about adjacent companies entering the market or less well-established brands, sports brands entering the market, it's really important to see how stakeholders and user groups react to that brand and if they will trust them. So we really want to know, is it feasible for a company to launch a solution themselves? Or do they really actually need to think about partnering with another brand who has an established reputation in the market in order to be successful? So I hope that kind of answers the question, but in short, the next step would be kind of really looping back, re-engaging with stakeholders and user groups on those value propositions, and then feeding that into the market strategy.
Fantastic. No, brilliant answer. Thank you ever so much. I'm sure that was well received. I'm just checking here. So there's another question here that which I'm happy to take, but please, Ros and Andy, feel free to chip in if you'd like, because I think that this is going to be a question that's on everybody's lips. You know, how has COVID-19 impacted consumer trends specifically, and how is consumer behaviour actually changed because of it? And I think this is a question we've been discussing at length recently. And fundamentally, I'd go back to making that point on, you know, consumer needs. What are those needs? Because I think fundamentally the needs, even in this pandemic, haven't actually changed. We have seen a shift in priority naturally, and some new needs have come in because of the extraordinary time that this is. And therefore that has led to people's behaviours changing. But so one key example of there is sort of online shopping. You know, we've really seen that rapidly accelerate, and people really having to catch up from an e-commerce perspective, but also on a behaviour perspective. But whether these new behaviours are going to last the test of time is yet to be seen. But I think, you know, the whole area of the pandemic really does open up the question, what is driving consumer behaviour at the end of the day? Because if you really understand what's driving it, then you'll be able to foresight actually how that's going to impact and shape the future going forward. So if I may, I'll just share a little bit about sort of, you know, the three megatrends, because I think that's probably helpful to see how maybe the pandemic has impacted those. So personalization, as I mentioned earlier, I think we're already seeing these increased fears around safety and hygiene. And that people are maybe choosing more kind of local businesses and brands to sort of provide more service experiences. And alongside that, you know, transparency is key. You know, consumers are wanting that level of trust and knowing kind of where products are coming from and what that supply chain looks like. So I do see that there's a reordering in those needs in terms of transparency. Secondly was digital connectivity. So we're seeing that the rate that businesses have had to evolve, especially around e-commerce, has been staggering, and really entering into this digitally enabled world, as you know, it's been accelerated upon us. So I think with the technology, it is now being embraced a lot quicker by consumers, especially around AI, which was a growing area that Andy there mentioned. I do think that we're going to start to see new initiatives, things like so robots being used to clean shop floors. So we're going to start to see technology being used as a way to give consumers peace of mind. And then finally, sustainability. Now, I think this is a really interesting area because whereas it was at the forefront of everybody's mind pre-pandemic, I do think it's kind of been knocked down a few pegs because actually kind of safety and health concerns are much more important. But again, it's understanding what's driving people's expectations and behaviours around sustainability, because even if you take something like a reusable solution, that's still going to have a play in the future going forward. But how you actually communicate and help consumers understand that a reusable solution is going to be safe and hygienic, it's going to be really key as part of that process going forward. So hopefully that's that's answered and given a few insights on that. I see we've got time for just one more question. So Andy, I think there's one that's come in here for you, which I think again would be great to hear your thoughts on. So you mentioned in-venue technology as a hot topic and how that's going to gather momentum. So I wondered if you could share a little bit more around that, especially given the pandemic and you know how that's sort of impacting venues and behaviours. What are your thoughts on that in-venue technology and how that's gathering momentum?
Well, yeah, thanks, Martha. Yes, well, yeah, definitely. Today's circumstances have certainly changed the way we view and experience a professional stadium game. We've even recognised that when the way the football league's been reopened and continue to finish for those Liverpool fans out there. Although venues and clubs will see this as a huge negative, it's actually a game changer. These games no longer become limited to fans who have bought seats in a capacity stadium. It can now open up a new revenue stream for more of an immersive stadium experience, especially from the home. So, like for instance, crowd reactions through visuals and the sound can now be better in tune with the game of performance. So the crowd noise could be dictated by those from our home as a collective, therefore a true representation of the game in play, rather than currently how it's operated currently with the control systems they have in play now. So fans from home will be able to experience, and another factor will be they'll be able to experience possibly how to a 360-degree visual representation of the from a position in the stadium under their control for their field of view. So no longer will they need to follow the ball or follow the game in play and the action. So you can be fully submersed within a seat and taking that panoramic view of the stadium. So the technology does exist really today for a more fulfilling home experience, but even from live input and output during the game can be achieved. It needs to be implemented with the right infrastructure. That's the key. So the infrastructure is the technology is there. We just have to apply the infrastructure right and correctly to make sure we can execute this for the fans and players both experience the same atmosphere as they had before. So when things return to normal and the pandemic is back under control, clubs and venues may need to think about the bigger picture, really, and be ready if an event happens like this again. That's how I'd say that, Arthur.
No, that's fantastic. I think you raised a really good point there around, what does that new normal kind of look like kind of going forward. So fantastic. No, thank you. You've whet our appetite there, Andy. Brilliant. I do think, though, sadly, we're kind of running out on answering any more of your questions. So thank you very much for submitting them. And we'd be more than happy to talk and reach out to you directly to pick these up. So apologies, we haven't been able to cover everything during today's time slot. So I think it just is left for me to say thank you all, very much for joining us for our webinar today. We wish you a safe and pleasant rest of the day and look forward to speaking with you soon. So thank you all very much. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye.